With day one of circles, you guys discussed what an arc was. So this whole lesson, we're going to go in a little bit deeper talking about arcs. So this first question says, what is an arc? So remember we put in our notes last class what an arc is. An arc is a piece of the circumference. So whenever I'm referring to circles, I always talk about them like they're pies. So if I'm looking at this pie, my arc is the crust of the pie. So this would be the piece of pie that I'm going to eat, and that would be the crust. On the second circle, this would be the crust of the piece of pie that I would eat. And I hope that if I were to ever cut a piece of pie like this, that you all would get very upset with me that a pie would be cut like this down in the middle of a pie. But nevertheless, it still makes me have more pie than all of you. So an arc is a piece of the circumference. It's the crust. So now let's talk about what a sector is. A sector is a piece of the area of a circle. So I call the sector is just the piece of pie. So the piece of pie that we're going to eat is that piece on the left circle and this piece on the right circle. So a sector is just the piece of pie. Your arc is the crust. So now we're going to go ahead and talk about what an arc measure is. An arc measure is the measure an arc is curved is directly related to its corresponding central angle. So an arc measure, it is the measure an arc is curved that is directly related to its corresponding central angle. So arc measures are always measured in degrees. So if my central angle here were 68 degrees, it corresponds to this arc, which means this arc here is measured 68 degrees. So if I want to look at some of these problems, it says to determine the measure of each arc. So I want to determine the measure of this yellow shaded area. So if I wanted to determine the measure of this yellow shaded area, well, it's half the circle. You know, a whole circle makes 360, so half a circle would be 180 degrees. So that yellow arc is 180 degrees. If I look at number two, I have a 90-degree angle in the center, which means all of these are 90 degrees, which means they correspond to their arc measures, which means this arc measure is 90 degrees. So go ahead and pause this video and try the next one on your own, and then unpause it so you can check your answer. So if I look at this one, this arc is 130 degrees. And I know this whole arc is 180 because it's half the circle. So I would do 180 minus 130, I would get 50 degrees. So hopefully you're all okay with finding arc measure. So now I want to go ahead and I want to talk about the area of a sector. And I'm going to just zoom in here. So when I want to calculate the area of a sector, so that's the piece of pie. I want to determine how much area is this piece of pie. So I know to find the area of a circle, the area of a circle is just pi r squared. So I know I'm using the area of the circle, but now I want to calculate where I'm only finding the area of this piece. So in math, when we're talking about pieces, we usually use fractions. So I'm going to take the area of a circle and I'm going to multiply it to the piece of that pie. And how I find that is it's my arc measure divided by 360. That's how I find the area of a piece of pie. I will be very honest with you, this is a very common formula that's forgotten. You do not want to forget it. And it's not that hard because it's just the area of a circle multiplied by the piece of the pie that I'm calculating. So if I were to look at this problem, I would do my arc measure, which is 50, divided by 360, times pi, and then r squared. R is 18, and then squared. So in my calculator, I'm going to type in 5 divided by 360 first, hit enter. I get 0.013888889. I'm now going to multiply that to 18 squared, and then I'm going to multiply it by pi. When I use pi, I don't want to use 3.14. I actually want to use the pi button on my calculator, which is in blue above the division button. So you go up to the rooftop button, and then it's in blue there. So if I hit enter, my area is 14, we'll round to the 10th place, 0.1 yards squared. So now let's go ahead and let's look at example 2. Example 2, now I want to find the area of this piece of pie. So if I want to find the area of that piece of pie, I'm going to do arc measure, which is 270, divided by 360, times pi, my radius is 4, squared. So I'm going to now put this in terms of pi. So when I want to put this in terms of pi, that just means I leave pi alone, I don't touch it. So I'm going to do 270 divided by 360, and now I'm going to multiply that to 4 squared. I get 12. So A equals 12 pi feet squared. So when I typed in 270 divided by 360, multiply it by 4 squared, I got 12, and then I just slapped pi on at the end like a variable. The reason for putting something in terms of pi is so it keeps it more exact, so you're not rounding. And also, it in case you don't have a calculator, it makes life a heck of a lot easier. So I want you to pause this video, and I want you to try example 3 on your own. Go ahead and you can write it, round it to the nearest tenth, which means, yes, you can write it in decimal form. And when you finish, unpause this video, and we'll go over it. So if I look at this problem, it would be, I want to find the area of this piece of pie. So that would be 60 divided by 360 times pi. My radius in this problem is 13 squared. So now I'll do 60 divided by 360 times 169, because that's 13 squared, times pi, and I get 88.5 meters squared is my area. Alright, so let's go ahead and let's do this next one. Trickier problems. Find the area of the shaded region. So if I think about this, I want the area of the whole circle except for what? The triangle. So I want you to pause this video and I want you to try this on your own, see if you can figure it out. And if you can figure it out, you can unpause and check your answer. And if you tried and then you can't figure it out, that's okay. Go ahead and unpause the video and then I'll explain it. So I mentioned that I want to find everything except this triangle right here. So I'm going to find the area of this circle, and I'm going to subtract it from the area of the triangle. So area of a circle formula is pi r squared. So pi, my radius is 3 squared. So I have 9 times pi, which is 28.3. So now I'm going to find the area of a triangle. So minus my area of my triangle is 1/2 base times height. 1/2, my base is 3. So my base is 3. What's this measure here? Well, that's just a radius, so that's also 3. So my height is also 3. So now I have 3 times 3 is 9. 1/2 of 9 is 4.5. So now I have 28.3 minus 4.5. I get 23.8 meters squared for my area. So go ahead and let's do this next one. Next one, My advice is when you have a problem like this, let's shade in what I don't want. So I don't want this triangle. So what if I shade in the triangle? Now notice this right here is a sector. So if I find the area of the sector and I subtract the area of the triangle, I'm going to be left with what's shaded in green. So how I find the area of a sector is it's my arc measure, which is 90, divided by 360, times pi, my radius is 12 squared. Minus my area of a triangle is 1/2, my base is 12, my height is 12. So 90 divided by 360 times 144 pi, oops, and I just deleted all of that. I get 113.1 minus 12 times 12 is 144. Divide that by 2, I get 72. So 113.1 minus 72 is 41.1 equals A, inches squared. It's inches squared because units in area are always measured in squared units. So go ahead and flip your paper. So now I want to talk about the length of an arc. We've talked about the measure of an arc. The measure of an arc and the length of an arc are two very different things. The measure of an arc is how bent your arc is. It's going to say, okay, how curved is this arc here? The length of an arc is physically how long is this. If I were to take this piece of my circle and flatten it out and measure it on a ruler, I want to know how long it is. So remember we talked about arcs are pieces of their circumference. So when I want to calculate an arc, I'm going to be multiplying my piece to the circumference. So I'm going to use 2 pi r, or I could use pi diameter. It doesn't matter which one because those both mean circumference. And now I'm going to multiply by the piece of this circle. So how I get the piece is it's a fraction. It's arc measure over 360. These formulas do have to be memorized, and remember I mentioned that these formulas are the most forgotten, so be careful. So if I take a look at this first example, I'm going to find the length. I'm not finding the area, I'm not finding the measure. If I was finding the measure, it'd be 45 degrees. To find the length, I have to use this formula. So my arc measure is 45 divided by 360 times 2 pi, my radius is 14. So in my calculator, I'm going to type in 45 divided by 360 and hit enter. And now I'm going to multiply 2 times 14 times pi. I get 10.99, so my arc length is 11 meters. Alright, so now I want you to pause this video and I want you to try number 2 and then go ahead and unpause this video and we'll go over it. So I know this arc measure is 60, which means this arc measure has to be 120. So I would do 120 over 360 times 2 pi. My diameter is 24, so my radius is 12. So I do 120 divided by 360 times 24 pi. I get 25.1 feet is my arc length. So go ahead and do the next thing with number 3. Pause this video, and when you finish, go ahead and unpause this video, and I will have the answer on the board. So the arc length should be 36.1. So the rest of your homework is to answer the rest of your practice is to answer these 4 questions. So you're going to answer these 4 questions and then I will check it.